everyone. I'm Lisa Parenteau, and I'd like to welcome you to Lifting Others as We Rise, the podcast where we dive into the world of real estate and the power of positive thinking. In each episode, we're going to bring you inspiring conversations with real estate professionals and other thought leaders who have really harnessed the power of lifting others up along their journeys. So let's get ready to elevate our mindset. Lifting Others as We Rise podcast, where inspiration is a catalyst for action. Let's go. Welcome to Lifting Others as We Rise podcast. I am your host, Lisa Parenteau, realtor, team leader, CRS, broker associate, but most importantly, Glamour here on beautiful Cape Cod in Massachusetts. And I'm thrilled today to welcome both my listeners and my special guest today, Kathleen Alexander, to our podcast. My hope today is that you are going to really enjoy yourself, curl up with a cup of tea. Maybe you're at the gym, maybe you're driving, and we will be able to offer you some things for consideration, as I always hope to give a dose of inspiration, some catalysts for change, and as we say, sprinkle a little bit of fairy dust along the way. So Kathleen Alexander, oh my gosh, you've had an amazing career. You've been, I don't like to call it seasoned. I like to call it experienced.
Marinated?
Seasoned, okay, yeah, the agent since 2002. So you have had a couple of cups of coffee here in real estate. You've seen a couple of markets, which we might talk about briefly, but mostly we're not going to talk about real estate, which of course we love to talk about. You have an award-winning team, the Creative Living team in the burbs of Boston, in the wealthy, swanky burbs of Boston, which is lovely. And one of the things I noticed about you was that you really seem to recognize the importance of community. And I think that is such an amazing piece of our fabric, that bringing that to the forefront of your work and your team and your career was really amazing. It says you have a strong, I understand that you do have a strong focus with first-time home buyers, but I know you find yourself in the luxury space. So we might talk a little bit about that as well. Absolutely. And your family is in Jamaica Plain, and welcome.
Thank you. Thanks so much, Lisa. I really appreciate being here. And you're right about community. So we always say, welcome to the Creative Living neighborhood. That's how we always greet our clients. And for us, our mission is really just to be in partnership with our clients. These are huge things that they're doing when they're moving is huge, no matter what, right? So we always look at it as being very transparent and also partners in having people be in a place where they can bring their best to the world. And that's really our mission.
I love that. Yeah, I love that. As we know, the moving process does not always bring out the very best in our clients.
It doesn't me either when I move. So
yeah. Oh, and if you've moved yourself, you absolutely know the stress. I just remember the excitement of having a dumpster in my driveway. I was like, give me that for a Christmas present or a birthday present, please. You have no idea the tremendous power of that, and we do see that, but we're more used to that. So for clients, and especially here, I know on Cape Cod, and I think in your area as well, many of our clients are older. And so they've been there for 20, 30, 40 years, and that creates a whole nother, of problems. But let me ask you,
go ahead. By the way, and many of them are first-time home sellers. Mm-hmm. And I love that, but it's so interesting. Often I'll meet with someone who's been in their home for 30 or 40 years, and this is the first time they're selling. So it's like a completely new ball game for them. And I'm always sensitive to kind of asking them that and just meeting them where they are and helping them understand the process from there. We're all about education. So I think that's just key and part of key for the partnership and the trust, right, with the client.
Yeah, that's so important. I love what you said about meeting them where they are, and perhaps we'll revisit that idea. Tell me back 20 something years ago, can you think of a specific moment in your life that set you on this path to become a realtor?
Yes. Well, I got into real estate because I had the pleasure of being laid off when the dot-com bust happened. So isn't that funny? I was doing management consulting and call it software solutions, supply chain solutions, those kinds of things. So I was working in that industry for a while. PricewaterhouseCoopers and some other smaller consulting firms and startups, and had the pleasure of being laid off. I'll say it's the pleasure, I guess. It was kind of an interesting moment, but fortunately, I had an amazing personal coach that I worked with, and we wrote a list of everything I wanted out of my next career. And I was looking for my next career. I was really looking for my calling. And wouldn't you know, real estate showed up. And I was taking actually a transformational course and was taking a seminar. And I needed to call some people to see if they would be there that week because we had low attendance. So I was given a list of 5 names, and one of the names I called was my original broker in real estate. And when I called to ask him if he was going to be there this week, he said, "Oh, yeah, I'll be there." And he said, "By the way, what do you do?" And I said, "Well, I build businesses. That's what I do." And he said, "Have you ever thought about real estate?" And I said, "I actually have. I actually lived with a builder and his wife in my high school years. And my sister who works on my team now, but my sister married to a contractor for 30 some years. And she used to, cost out large building projects like supermarkets and things like that and manage the projects. So there's been a lot of that with me in my life. And so when he said that, I said, yes, I actually have. And so I met with him. And 2 weeks later, I went to the class. 3 weeks later, I had my real estate license. I took the test and I did open houses that weekend and never looked back. So that's how I ended up in
That's
this
amazing. So you actually worked with a coach, number one, which I think is amazing. And I have a Tony Robbins coach to this day. And I love when I hear that realtors have coaching. Maybe we'll be able to touch base on that quickly again, but that you made a list. You thought about, what do I really want this to look like? So almost as a catalyst for change, as we've been putting in that context, that process, that self-awareness, that permission, if I may, to give yourself that time to think about, wait a minute here. The rug was just pulled out from underneath me. Let me see if I can, see what's underneath that rug.
It took me about a year before I made that list, by the way, Lisa.
Okay.
So it wasn't immediate. So don't feel bad if you don't know where you are immediately. I don't think that's so relevant, but it was super helpful to have my coach's help to do that. And, I still have a real estate coach to this day that I talk to every week. So I'm just a firm believer in, you need somebody to cry to and to listen to you and bounce ideas off of, and somebody
I love that. So let me
can
ask you, when you were making that list, when you were thinking about, if there are listeners now that either are here in real estate, maybe they're newer and they're realizing, oh, you mean it's a little bit more than just throwing a sign in the yard and going under agreement in 2 days? Wait a minute here. Or maybe they're looking at the back 9 and kind of looking at, like, what does the next phase of my career look like? Could you offer a little bit of guidance around what maybe 2 or 3 of those important questions might be? Because I just think this is a really important piece that we don't slow down and give ourselves enough permission to do regularly, right? Because things change, we change, the industry changes, our family changes, our needs and wants and desires change as we grow and change.
True. And are you talking about in terms of what I looked at, or what was
when you said you made that list and said, what do I really want in my life? What were some of those things that you had to take a deep breath and say, is it time, treasure, money? What are some of those factors that you looked into that you might offer to another now?
Yeah, none of it was about money. I'm trying to think back. Sorry, that's a long time ago. So I do know that some of the things on the list were that I wanted flexibility. I also wanted something that was a career. I was looking for something that I loved and that I really enjoyed doing. I wanted something that was like a vocation or a career, not a job, right? And I think for me, I've always been entrepreneurial. I have either owned my own business on the side or done things since I was 12, actually, if you want the truth, 12 or 13. So it's kind of natural for me in that. So I think there was a piece to that also that was in there and was exciting for me. I also remember going through and doing my core values with my coach at that time.
I love that.
And
love that.
My top 2 values were fun and love. And I think those still are very prominent to this day for me. And so I think I wanted something where both of those things could be expressed. And I really do. I still to this day, I always say we have the best clients that work with us. And I love the people we work with. And, even when the market these days has not been so easy, we're not at an easy moment. We're at a shifting moment, even though it seems like a hot market, which puts everybody on edge. And that's been more difficult to navigate, I think. And
Yeah,
so even when people are going through difficult steps or the transaction is not as easy as it would seem, I still think we just work with the best people. To me, that's fun and love in action, or like, how can we bring a little fun or a little lightheartedness? To me, service is really in my blood. So I think looking from that perspective, love to me is service, right? So, like, how can we help people get where they need to be? And how can we help them do that as smoothly as we can? We can't take all the drama or all of the stress out of it. However, there's a lot we can do to really help them get where they need to go, have resources for them to help them that they may not be able to sort through at the time, or that they need a helping hand or a shoulder to lean on to do that.
absolutely.
So I think, and especially like you were talking about our elderly clients, and that's absolutely crucial, right? Because it may be just a little segue here, but it's interesting. I met with somebody on Monday and they've been 50 years in their house, 50. And
Wow.
yeah, original owners of the house, 1974. And unfortunately, the husband had suffered a compression fracture in his back and moving things. And so, very difficult. So, unfortunately, I discovered Move Managers a few years ago, and they are amazing miracle workers. And so, I was able to introduce them so that there'd be somebody else that could help them with sorting, packing, selling, disposing of all of those things. And to me, that's love, right? Is just helping them figure all that out and having resources for them so that they're not alone in doing things.
Yeah. And you mentioned something that's so important, and especially with our elder clients, but really in every stage, they just tend to be, I think, a little bit different, but really meeting them exactly where they are. Some of them have been, this is their fourth or fifth move, and they have some of it down, and they continued to shed as they've moved, right? But 50, I know that place is full of mahogany furniture that they think is beautiful and that nobody wants. And there's that whole conversation around, first of
Yeah,
all, nobody ever visits your home and leaves empty-handed. So we always say that no matter when I visit a client, I tell them no one ever from this moment on leaves your house empty-handed. They have to take something out of the house when they leave. But that's expensive to get rid of stuff too, right? So there's that whole process, but we meet them exactly where they are. Tell me something fun that
yeah.
that you've done to interrupt that stressful moment with a client. Do you have a story you could share with us about bringing some fun into it?
My goodness. Wow. I don't know if I have a good fun story. I think I like to just bring humor to the whole thing because, I mean, if you're not laughing, you're crying, right? So, like, let's not cry, let's laugh, or let's find the humor in it, or let's find what can we do to make this fun? Like, nobody leaves empty handed, even, right? Like,
I always
somebody's
say
got to
that.
take
Yeah,
something,
yeah, yeah.
right? Or it's funny. I mean, I can't tell you how many times somebody has said, "Oh, wouldn't you like this?" I'll look at it and be like, not really, but I'm like, that's okay. Sure. Let me take it. I'm sure that I know somebody, right? And whatever happens to it after then, that's okay. The nice thing is they didn't have to think about it
Yeah, yeah,
anymore.
yeah, yeah, no
You
kidding.
know?
So I love that you also mentioned core values when you were thinking about, what is really driving me. What I have found is that people start to think about this stuff in like November and December when they're looking at making their business plan for the following year, and they've given themselves permission to kind of look at where I've been. And we've had such a changing market since 2000. The world has just turned upside down and shaken us upside down. And we've continued to be resilient. And we'll maybe be able to talk about resilience for a moment. But when we look at all of those things that have continued to kind of move and transition and all of those, can you think of a moment through this kind of tumult in the last few years where you've asked yourself to redefine success?
Mhm.
What does success represent to you now? Because I suspect it may be different than, when we have the core values of fun and love. And those are important, of course, but what does success look like for you now at this stage in your career as we're continuing to be in a shifting time?
Yeah, That's a great question. Well, one thing that's great, and I did this with my whole real estate team, but my coach sent me for core values this list of probably 50 different words, right? To look through. And you look through and see what resonates for you, right? And then look through it again, and it's sort of a drilling down process to come up with your top three, right, for the year. I think that was a great exercise that we did in December, and really fun to do it with my team because it really helped me see what was crucial for them,
Yeah, yeah.
which was really cool. And for me, my top three were growth, joy, and abundance. And that was really, so for this year, that's really kind of where I am. For me, in terms of defining success, I think a lot of it is that those same principles, right? Because joy can come in so many forms, but loving what you do or just finding the joyful moments in life, even if they're small ones. My son is 11 and he is my basketball star. He loves to play basketball. So we eat, breathe, and sleep that, sleep that. Just the joyful moments of like spending time with him, or even when he's part of my business. It's funny. This week he's hired himself on as my social media manager.
Excellent.
Because I asked if he could encourage me in that, and he said he would. So, anyways, so yes, and he comes for $20 a month, which was a bonus. So
That's a great deal.
but we actually did a webinar yesterday about social media together, and just some fun. Like, to me, that's a joyful moment to be able to share things with
That's
him.
very joyful. And we'll make sure we have all of your social media profiles in the show notes so people can check out. And what's your son's name?
His name is Gary.
All right. So we can check out what you and Gary are up to on your Instagram. All right. Is Gary looking at TikTok? Is Gary giving you a TikTok?
No, actually, we decided TikTok is not for us.
All right. All right.
Just on like YouTube and LinkedIn, probably start there.
Excellent.
As well as Facebook and Insta. So yeah. But kind of fun to just have those joyful moments, to whether it's sharing with him or with clients too, like the joyful moments of, I had clients who after 30 years moved out of their two-family last week, drove to Florida, and are in their new house this week down there. And just like they said, it was a jubilee on Monday when they closed, right, on their new place. So it was like a big, just celebrating those things with them. So finding joy in all those little moments.
And I love that. So doing that, I knew I used John Gordon's one word, but doing that kind of guiding principle for the year intentionally, noting something that you will be looking for. That's a new definition of success for you. And I just love that. That's a real catalyst. That's a catalyst for change, that you are able to identify that those things are important to you. And how can I manifest those? How can I be grateful for those? How can I notice those? Because this stuff's happening anyway, but how can I really express my joy around that? I just love that, Kathleen. That's really beautiful.
How can I bring that to my clients, right? Or how can I bring that to the people in my life? I really think of it more like that, like the people of my life, because that's how I really think of the people that I work with, is they're the wonderful people that have been brought to me. And there's some reason why we've rendezvoused to do what we need to do, right? And why they're part of my neighborhood, right? Or part of my family. So I really look at it that way. And I think for me too, success, I think it's morphed a lot since I started. I think when I was starting, like starting a business takes something, right? And I've done it before. So I committed the first 2 years I was in real estate. This is all I do. And it was all I did for 2 years, long hours and a lot. And it's turned out beautifully. So I'm very grateful for that. And I think what's interesting over the years is I've always wanted to have a team, or wanted to have people that I work with, because for me, what's motivational is really seeing other people excel and succeed. And also too, at this point, Lisa, I don't know, I don't remember how many years you're in the business, but long enough to, comes a point where I've seen enough houses, right? Like, I love houses. Don't get me wrong. I love houses. I like renovating houses. I like planning houses. I like building houses. I like all of that. At the same time, I've shown so many. I know exactly what all the layouts are in every single neighborhood in Boston. I know what it looks like before I even get there, pretty much. And So there's something wonderful about taking that knowledge and just helping others to have that knowledge or look for creative ways to solve the client's problem. You know, me, I'm a problem solver, I'm a consultant. That's what I love to do. And so helping others be able to do that and do it well for our clients, to me, that's just fun. So it's fun to help grow people and help them succeed. And to me, I don't know. I always feel like the money comes in, the numbers are there, right? And there's certainly people that do much more than we do. And I'm very happy. I think we're very successful as a very small team. I just have two other agents that work with me. And then Faith is our chaos coordinator. I'd love her. We couldn't live without her. You know, we're a small team, but we are very successful in terms of what we're doing. And what I like the most, though, is seeing them be successful and building their lives and watching them buy their first homes or really enjoy the fruits of the labor
Yeah.
that we're
And
doing.
you just really identified and illustrated exactly the intention of this podcast. You know, lifting others as we rise sounds like your definition in many ways of success today. And it's really beautiful when you look at the trajectory, as we've talked about today, that you started as a consultant, and thank
Yeah.
heavens the universe shook a few things up to kind of shake you out of that corporate world. And there are so many of us that are in second, third, fourth careers
Yeah.
because at least in this state, the barriers for entry are quite low. I mean, they're not in other parts of the country. There's a 140-hour program, I believe, in Colorado, like there for regular salesperson's license, right?
It's
Here, I say if you can fog a mirror, you can be a realtor.
You can. And you know what's interesting too, Lisa, is I didn't mention this earlier, but being laid off was my catalyst to get into real estate. But what's interesting is I started in August, and I think it was the end of October. I had a major accident on the expressway. I got sandwiched on the expressway and it totaled my car along with my back. And until then, I was still working part time at a gallery that I've been working at. And I didn't know if I could stand up to do a full shift. Some days I could, some days I couldn't. So I ended up having to say, sorry, I can't do that anymore. Then I looked at myself in the mirror and said, wow, okay, got to make this real estate thing work. So some days, if I was having a hard time moving, I would lay in bed, make phone calls, and do whatever I needed to do. And you know what? I could see that as something that I'm grateful because had I not had that catalyst, it would have been too easy not to just dig in and do what was needed to be done.
Day in,
Right.
day out. That's correct. And I think that's really the germ of so much of what I discover in this journey of my podcast is that it's challenges that bring us those catalysts. And usually the challenges are challenging. Let's just use that as a politically correct word. You know, we're not like lolling on the beach having a catalyst for change, right? I mean, it's typically something that's rather life impacting. And so I just love that you found yourself. I'm so grateful to have you have been a guest today. And I just want to end on, you know, if you could offer throughout your career, as we talked about consultant and then the different things that you've done, and today working with your team and kind of, you know, really seeing as a measure of success that joy and growth and involving your son. And one thing I think we also are continuing to learn about and help each other with is a quality of resilience.
Mhm.
So, if you could offer one thing to our listeners in terms of something that has helped you feel more resilient, what might that be?
I think it comes down to, I have said this for many, many years, but I think that more than 50% of the game of real estate is just managing yourself. When I say managing yourself, it's managing my mindset, managing how I feel and taking care of myself so that I can go out in the world and be great with people, you know. And I often say there are weeks it's 90% of the job is just doing what I need to do, you know, exercise, affirmations, just eating properly, right? Sleeping properly to take care of myself to bring my best. And I do think that mindset is so huge and kind of the number one thing. And to me, that helps with the resilience. You know, I think it's too easy to get caught up in oh, that didn't work out, or this deal fell through, or, there's so much of a roller coaster in what we do. And I think, though, keeping a positive mindset and believing in yourself is just so crucial. And whatever you need to do to remind yourself of that, that's important to do, whether it's having someone else remind you, or this week we got a lot of reviews in. So Amy on my team, I was sending her the reviews her clients gave, which were all great, but it gave her a huge boost, right? So like if you're having a moment where you're like, oh God, sometimes you need to call clients and just have them be excited to talk to you, or read their reviews and hear that they had good things to say, right? And I think some of that is just key in moving forward. Gary Keller always says this, and I guess, sorry, he's definitely, as a KW agent, that's like, he's my mentor in so many ways. But, he always says too, it's not failure as long as you get back up, right? So improving my relationship to failure has been huge, which I've been doing for like 20,
I love
25
that.
years. But, when I was younger, it was like, oh God, I failed, or oh my God, I was so caught up in failing, right? And I really, that the same coach, Jean DiGiovanna, God bless her, who had me make that list when I got into real estate, but she would always say two things. One, if not this, then something better. And number two was, she would say, don't say I failed. She would ask me, what did you learn?
Absolutely.
And so I always ask that of my team. I ask that of myself. I ask that of my son. So, okay, well, let's not focus on we failed, because maybe we just learned something. And then that's the next stepping stone to figure out what's next, right? So, like, what did I learn? And really focus on that and take the learning. And then it's easier to face it again, because, okay, I learned this. So when I'm starting again or trying something again, it's not in the same place. I take that learning with me, right? Again, you've never failed if you get back up, you never
Not a
fail.
failure. Correct.
It's
Yeah,
just like you're doing you just as long as you keep doing it again and keep taking on the challenge, that's really all that matters in the end.
for sure. Well, again, Kathleen, thank you so much. This has been so awesome. I loved that, self-care in terms of allowing us to really take care of ourselves and speak up for that, and to put our arms around ourselves for resilience is huge. And I just loved the idea of improving our relationship with failure. That is such a key and another one of those huge, huge catalysts. So thank you again, Kathleen. This has been an amazing episode. I hope you
Yeah,
enjoyed it as well. I can't wait
I
to see it
have.
when it hits, and we will let you know. Until then, thanks again. It's been great.
My pleasure, Lisa. Thank you so much for having me. It's been awesome.
What an amazing episode we just had with Kathleen Alexander. I hope you took away as much as I did. Again, so often we realize that those catalysts for change are very challenging things that have happened to us, but with a full heart and open mind, we're able to turn those challenges into new opportunities. There were a couple of things that Kathleen really called out, and one of them was periodically going through your core values. What are those? And maybe even on a yearly basis, so that in that year you can continue to focus. Kathleen mentioned hers were growth, joy, and abundance. And so she's using those as a measure of success. And then lastly, I loved it when I talked to her about resilience, and she mentioned how important it was to take care of yourself, that it starts there. It starts with self-care, and that has to do with exercise. And if you do yoga and eating well and sleeping well and taking care of yourself, finding ways to love yourself. And then she mentioned, of course, redefining her relationship to failure. What a nugget that was, and the idea of how can we continue to redefine our ideas of failure, our ideas of how we pick ourselves back up. So again, I hope you got as much out of this as I did. Looking forward to our next podcast. Lisa Parenteau on beautiful Cape Cod, realtor, CRS, broker associate, and Glamma with the Lifting Others as We Rise podcast. Talk to you soon.